Inshallah, we continue with the hadith lesson. And for the past lesson, we've been talking about one specific hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which we reviewed at the beginning of every lesson, but I'll just give you the context of it. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives a promise to his companions that the day of judgment will not happen unless 10 signs happen. And we've been discussing some of the signs that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about in this hadith. Some of them are like the coming of the Dajjal, the return of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam, and the coming of the Dabba, and so on. We've been discussing the Dajjal for the past couple of lessons, and we partially explained some stuff about the Dabba, but today we will also continue talking about the Dajjal in a different way, of which what happens before the Dajjal comes out. And this comes from one hadith. The context of the hadith is that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, as always, warning his companions and warning the people around him from the coming of the Dajjal. And one woman in this hadith, she's the narrator of it, she asks Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam if this is happening at that time, what are Arabs doing at this time? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam replies to her and says that Arabs at this day are a minority, or that Arabs are a small amount of people at that day. And this can happen in multiple ways, some of which are relative to what happened at the time of the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like the plague of Amwas, which at that time killed a lot of the Arabs back then. Something like a plague or a major war or something like that, or a famine can happen that can remove a lot of the Arabs that are living today. And one of the signs of the Dajjal coming is that Arabs have become a minority. It's not necessarily that their numbers have gone down, but they have become a small amount. And that case scenario of Arabs becoming a minority or their numbers decreasing can happen most likely with a famine or an economic collapse. We were talking about the story of the Dajjal, how about Tamim ad-Dari met him in that stranded island when he was on a sea voyage with his friends going somewhere far. They landed on a certain island, and we explained the story. They met the Dajjal and he started asking them some questions. But the questions that he asked were mainly economic, about water sources and about trees and fruits. He was asking about stuff that Arabs relied on to live. And we explained in the last lesson that Arabs mainly relied on stuff like dates from palm trees and on water to live, for sometimes going months on end without consuming anything other than these two. And the places that the Dajjal asked about were some places like the Lake of Tabariya, which is in Jordan, the palm trees of Baisan, which are south of that lake. And he asked about a village near Jerusalem, near Quds, has a lot of water wells, and he asked who the people there use its water to grow crops, and they answered him yes, the people there use its water to grow crops. And he told them that the Lake of Tabariya and that place full of wells and full of water sources both are going to dry up, and the garden of Baisan, or the palm trees of Baisan, are going to stop producing fruits. So what we can see from what the Dajjal asked about, and looking that a sign of the Dajjal coming is that Arabs have decreased in numbers, or they have become a minority, is likely going to happen from an economic collapse or a famine. And what we can see nowadays about most Arabs living in North Africa or living in the Middle East, other than like Saudi Arabia and Oman and some rich countries of the Gulf countries, we can see that most of them are living a harsh life there. Most of them are below the poverty line, and most of them are poor. Some people in North Africa are talking about that food has become so expensive. Inflation has made prices more than quadruple in a lot of stuff. And the places that mainly the Dajjal asked about were places in Sham, which are Syria and Lebanon and Palestine and Jordan, which could mean that that place is definitely going to ruin. In the future, further on the economic collapse that might happen to certain Arab countries, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have talked about it in a separate hadith, mentioning the country of Iraq and the country of Syria and Egypt in 3 different ways. First, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the currency of Iraq and the currency of Syria are going to fail. And the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, how is that going to happen? And he told them that in Iraq it's going to be caused by the Romans, how it is mentioned in the hadith. And for Syria, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that it's going to be by foreigners, by ajab. Basically means non-Arabs. And in Egypt, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say who is going to cause it, so the tafsir or the explanation for this hadith is probably that it's going to happen by the people of Egypt themselves and not from an outside source. And also another sign of the coming of the Dajjal is the change of the change of the looks of the Masjid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the architecture of this place is going to change. In what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained about the Dajjal is that when he comes near Yathrib, he's not allowed to enter Yathrib because of the angels protecting it. He's not allowed to enter there. But he's going to look at the buildings, and he's going to look on the places that are there, and he's going to point to a certain place that he described as a white fortress or as a white mansion. He described it looking so beautiful, and he told the people that are going to be with him, do you see that white fortress or that white mansion over there? That is the Masjid of Ahmad, the Masjid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which happened nowadays, the architecture of the Masjid of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina has begun to change after 2005. They started restoring it, they started renovating it, and they changed it to what nowadays actually looks like a white mansion or a white sign for the coming, that happens before the coming of the Dajjal, is that Constantinople is going to be conquered by Muslims again. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained already in a separate hadith that Muslims are going to conquer Constantinople, which is nowadays Istanbul, and they have tried so many times. The companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have tried once, but they failed, and some caliphs or some sultans after them have tried, but they failed. It's only Muhammad II, or Muhammad the Conqueror, as he is nicknamed, that succeeded in conquering Constantinople, and nowadays it's called Istanbul. But that's in a separate hadith, and it's not the time that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about. In this time, Constantinople or Istanbul is going to fall into the hands of enemies of Islam, and Muslims are going to fight and conquer it yet again. And it is most likely because nowadays around Turkey, around the place that Constantinople or Istanbul is surrounded by enemies nowadays. Basically, no one around them actually likes them. So it is possible. It is a possibility that can happen in maybe less than 2 years even. And the other one, in a separate hadith narrated by Mu'adh ibn Jabal, is that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was talking about the prosperity that is going to happen at Bayt al-Maqdis, talking about Quds or Jerusalem. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that if that place begins to prosper and begins to actually gain wealth and become powerful, Yathrib or Medina is going to fail and is going to collapse. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or the Muslim scholars have debated over whether this hadith is actually authentic or has a weak chain of narration or a weak context. Some Muslim scholars have agreed that it is authentic, and some argue that it is a weak hadith, so we shouldn't take it. Another hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells his companions the lands that they are going to conquer in the future. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam begins with saying that they are going to try and fight for the Arab Peninsula, and they're going to try to conquer it, and by the will of Allah they succeed. And then afterwards he says that they are going to try and attack the land of Persia, which is Iran nowadays, and Allah Azza wa Jal, by His will, is going to let them succeed. And then they are going to attack Constantinople, and by the will of Allah, they are going to conquer it. And by the will of Allah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also mentioned that they are going to conquer the Romans. The name of the Romans, because we actually have to focus on that topic specifically, the name Romans could actually apply to a lot of countries. Since Romans didn't truly actually fall, the Roman Empire didn't truly fall, it just evolved into different countries. One guy that I watched the video for explains it in detail, that the power of the Roman Empire evolved into the Byzantine Empire, and after they fell, they divided to the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, and then their power was divided into different countries. So the name Romans itself could describe many countries, including Russia, including the majority of European countries that were in the Roman Empire, which some of them now created colonies in America, which is nowadays the United States. So multiple countries could fit that description of the name Romans. And Muslims have already conquered Roman lands, including the Byzantines conquered by Muhammad the Conqueror when he conquered Constantinople. And many countries were also conquered by Muslims, which also could count as another hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He describes the 3 years that come right before the coming of the Dajjal. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam described that at the first year of these 3 years, 1/3 of the global rain, basically the rain that all of the population of this earth receive, is going to stop. 1/3 of it is going to completely stop. At the second year, 2/3 of that rain is going to stop. And for the third year, the last year, the rain is going to completely stop, at least on a global scale, that a lot of places are not going to receive rain at all, which can happen in different ways because of the changes to the weather. Nowadays, either the lands are going to dry up, or they are going to completely freeze in some places. So a lot of places are not going to receive rain at global scales. And Prophet Muhammad explained that people are going to turn back to Allah Azza wa Jal. They are going to pray more. They are going to do dhikr more, asking Allah Azza wa Jal so that they receive more food, they receive more water because they are starving. And Prophet Muhammad said that they will only receive what keeps them alive. What Prophet Muhammad described isn't like a famine where a lot of people are dying because they don't have food, but he described it as more of mass starvation. Yes, not a lot of people are dying, some may die, but everyone is hungry. They are not dying, but everyone is really hungry and really desperate. And what you have to understand about this is that why are people going to believe the Dajjal originally? What powers does he have to convince people that he is Allah Azza wa Jal as he is claiming? The powers that he has is that he can make it rain on command. He can make the ground grow crops and fruits and all kinds of plants on command. Allah Azza wa Jal has granted him those powers. So what do you think about it if someone is really desperate, really hungry, and really thirsty, and someone comes to him and offers him that he's going to give him food in exchange of believing him? You see someone who makes it rain on command, makes the land grow plants and fruits and any type of crops on command. A lot of people are going to believe him since a lot of people are going to be really desperate.